Hello and welcome to episode 1329 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Friday, August 9th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, but the midweek show is cursed. Something is always throwing up roadblocks for us. Yesterday, our plumbing. Right now, we don't know that it's going to be a major issue. We have the plumber coming out today. Hopefully everything's okay, but it's never good when the sink is coming up. You don't expect water to come upward in a sink, or two sinks, as it were, including one that we weren't using. We got, the two sinks in a bathroom. We're only using this one, and then there's water coming up in both. Scary. So we got someone coming out. That's why we didn't have a midweek show. That one's on me. My apologies. But we're back to talk some two steps. Let's just dive right into it because it's an interesting board here. A lot of names that you might think would graduate, but for one reason or another, they're on here. They're not pitching that well lately. They're old. They're coming back from injury. Plenty of reasons. And we'll start with one off the top where you're like, wow, we really have to question him. Yeah, we do have to question Charlie Morton, Justin, at San Francisco, at LA Angels. So nice setups. Your Giants aren't terrible, but you guys do better against lefties. And then, of course, going to the Angels, you don't feel bad about. But it's a 4.47 ERA and a 1.31 WHIP for Morton. Like, he's a fine back-end major league guy to eat up innings for a big league club. But for fantasy, man, I look at the 1.31 WHIP and the 1.4 homer 9, and it gives me some pause with Morton to where, like, yeah, 15s, I think I can see this, even after the crushing against Milwaukee for Morton. But I don't know that I go much beyond that. In 15s, it's not even like set in stone for Morton. So what do you think, Morton at the Giants, at the Angels?
I mean, I feel like this is one of those scenarios where if you can't start him here, when can you start him?
And I'm okay with that. I am okay with adhering to, okay, I can't start Morton here, so I'm cutting him. Like, if you plan to not start him next week, cut him during this week's fab and pick up somebody else for Morton.
Yeah,
I do agree with that.
The Giants are the 21st team in OPS versus right-handed pitching, and the Angels are 25th. So,
Okay.
these are really, really good matchups. And they're both one's in San Francisco, which is a really great park to pitch in. Angels not as great, but I just don't know that you can pass this up. I know Morton has looked a lot more shaky, and while he may be kind of on people's must-start lists,
Mm-hmm.
the underlying skills have been bad for like a year and a half, right? Like these have not been good underlying skills. I think he's just one of those guys who kind of knows how to pitch.
Exactly.
Um,
And his
like the
guile
Yeah,
is grinding out 115 innings of like league average work for Morton. And there's good starts in there. And I agree with you that, like, if you can't start him here, you're never feeling comfortable. So I
yeah,
think it's on the table for 15s. Are you getting there in any 12s with Morton? Can you go that low, or is it
I think
15s
so.
only?
No, I
Okay.
think you get there in some 12s. Just the matchups alone. I mean, I started JP Sears in a 12 this week.
Hey,
Like,
and so far so good, right?
somebody was touching me in the road to write it because they're like, you always pick for your streaming pitchers, you always pick guys going up against bad teams. Well, that's because that's the
That's
best way to stream. Like
the
that is
whole
just
point.
like
Wait,
you look for good matchups.
that was a critique?
Yeah, well they say I pick bad pitchers sometimes, which is true. And I got beat
Well,
up in the month of July,
but that's part of
but
streaming too,
yeah, it's just
because there's not always shit out there, or
exactly like
sometimes there's only shit out there, as it
that.
were.
Especially at this
Um,
point in the season where people haven't quite given up, but they're
exactly.
pretty close to giving up.
There's
So
most waiver wires are still being pretty well picked over, and
yeah,
we're hitting that turning point. Football's coming. You're going to start to see, and we talk about this even in the NFBC. It's not like everyone, all 15 teams in every main event league play to the whistle and play their asses off. And I'm not roasting anybody who does find other priorities, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm meticulously looking over the moves of my last place main event team because that team blows. Okay, imagine taking Royce Lewis and Mike Trout on the same team. What a stupid idiot!
it's
But
almost as if you had someone who warned you not to do
shut the
that.
fuck up. I don't give a shit. Mike Trout MVP. I should have taken Mike Trout on both leagues. That was the real problem. And I should have taken Trout on one, Lewis on the other. But anyway, Morton, I'm in there in 15s. I think you talked me into 12s. I'm looking at it right now. He is just better against worse teams as you would expect.
Yeah.
Almost 2 more Ks per nine, 9.8 to 7.9. Weirdly, the whip is higher against the sub 500 teams, 134 versus 128, but the ERA is a run lower, 398 to 492. So we like Morton against these terrible teams. And then, like I said, if you have a deep enough rotation not to, then cut him. Trevor Rogers gets Washington and Boston both at home with his new club, the Orioles. They have not Yusei Kikuchi'd him. Not that I'm suggesting anybody thought that they were going to magically fix him. For me, it's more of a next year thing that I'm interested. I can't wait to see what an off season with Baltimore might look like if they can get something more out of Trevor Rogers. But where do you stand here with a decent set of matchups? One good, one bad. Boston's very scary. But Washington, Boston at home for Trevor Rogers. Anything there for you?
I mean, Trevor Rogers is just like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde of, pitching, right? Like sometimes you're gonna like get an amazing start and sometimes you're gonna get the monsters. So uh I don't know what to do with him most of the time. Like I ran him out there this week and I'm okay with what he put up,
Right.
but he just scares the crap out of me. At least both starts at home. I think you're probably starting this in a 15, in a 10 or a 12. I think I'm a little bit more on the fence, especially if I'm protecting my ratios. But
Yeah.
if you're win seeking, there's no better place than pitching for the Orioles in Baltimore. So
You took the words out of my mouth. That's the main reason that I would start Trevor Rogers this week is if I were win seeking specifically. He's 0-1 with them, but it's Baltimore. They're a good team. They should beat Washington, and of course they're very much capable of beating Boston as well. Obviously, Trevor Rogers has to do his part to notch wins in those games, but that's where I would take the shot, and it would almost be exclusively 15 teamers. Let's talk a little Brian Bayo because the surface numbers, they're not doing much for you. 516, 145. How much do you know about Bayo right now? I'm going to quiz you on something. Are you very familiar with his stat line?
I mean, I'm a little bit familiar.
Do you know how many wins he has?
I'm gonna guess a bunch.
Yeah, because I'm
Um,
asking. With a
yeah,
516 ERA and a 145 whip, you would probably
so
guess like five wins. It's
yeah,
10.
yeah. Okay.
So, when we talk about win seeking, this is the sort of stuff that we're talking about. Is that you can take on maybe some mediocre to bad starts and still pile up wins if the team's performing well enough. That said, I also believe that Bayo is better than this 5 ERA guy that we've been seeing, particularly of late. Now, the results haven't fully been there, but the stuff, pretty much since the beginning of July, after a 7 earned run outing against Toronto, has been markedly better. So the results, again, they're not eye popping, 4.46 ERA, but 45 strikeouts in 40 innings, 12 walks. I think Bayo has turned the corner a little bit, at least in terms of his quality of stuff. And I like this setup here. I think he can handle Texas at home and a trip to Baltimore pretty well. I like Bayo in 15s and 12s. What about you?
Yeah, I think I would roll with him 15s and 12s. I mean, his swing strike rate is up to 15% since the beginning of July.
That's
He's getting
amazing.
swings outside of the zone 30% or a third of the time. So um yeah, I mean, there's always a little bit of like blow up risk with him.
Because of the
Uh,
homers, especially. Yep.
and Bale's just one of those guys in some ways where I watch him pitch and I go, oh, I think this guy's really got something special. And then you look at the results, and you're like, why does he always just kind of suck? Uh,
It's getting there though, and it's our favorite. What's our favorite phrase? Prospect growth isn't linear.
yeah,
He's obviously not a prospect in terms of qualifying for prospect lists, but he's 25 years old with 326 major league innings. He's very much still growing, and I totally agree with you. You will look and you be like, this guy looks like a stud. And then you go look at the line, you're like, oh, 5 innings, 3 runs, three
he's like the
walks.
he's like the antithesis of Charlie Morton, right? Like he is so much a thrower right now. He is not quite yet a pitcher.
Right.
And you hope that like it probably isn't going to all come together this year, but the hope is that at some point it comes together because the organization's so good at developing pitching now with Andrew Bailey in the fold that like at some point I think he's going to put it all together and be a stud. And I think that's why the Red Sox signed him to a long-term deal was because
Right.
they proved that too.
Yeah, that's actually a great point because I think some people might have forgotten that like he's inked up through 30 or a player option for 30, but he's inked up through 29. They really believe in Brian Bayo. I do too. And like, don't let these surface numbers push you away from him completely. And like Justin said, it might not come together, the rest of the season completely, but it's enough to keep me interested and at least be using him as a team streamer in your shallower formats and pretty much full time in 15s, just because that's
Yeah.
the landscape that we're in. Because I'm even probably going to say that you start this guy in 15s, even though he has been freaking horrendous. And this is my dude coming into the year, but Cutter Crawford, oh my God, Justin. So on the season, on the entire season, Tarek Skubal has allowed 13 homers. Cutter Crawford's done that in the last 4 games. I had to get you the context there of what's been going on. He did that in the last 4 games. Allowed this. Now I compared him to the ace of the season, the AL Cy Young, but like just for reference, like that's crazy. I mean, Mitch Keller, he's not an ace, so he has 13. There's a bunch of guys with 13 homers on the season, and Cutter Crawford has that many in the last 4 games. Justin, he's completely melting down. 18 and 2/3 innings in that time, a 10.61 ERA. The more I'm looking at it, the more maybe I'm not starting him even in 15s. He's broken right now. 5, 3, 4, and 1 homers in the last 4 games. It's been the Dodgers, Yankees, Texas, and Kansas City. So it's
Yeah,
been
it's
a
a brutal
hell of a
schedule.
schedule. And the thing with Cutter Crawford is before that, he faced the Yankees and KC as well, and he put up 14 scoreless. So this has been a bear of a schedule for 6 games. The first 2 he did well. The last 4 he's melted. Where are we at with Cutter Crawford? Because I do think this is a cut if you're not going to start him.
Um, and I'd have a really hard time cutting him in a 15.
Are you
But
sitting him then?
I mean, I think you have to sit him. The problem is like, is the schedule really going to get that much better considering?
It's Arizona the following week, and they're playing their asses off right now.
Yeah, let's see. It'd be Arizona, and then I'm trying to determine whether it's Toronto. Well, then it's either Toronto or Detroit after that. So
Okay, so
like,
finally a reprieve
and then
in
they
3
go,
starts.
and then the following week they go to the Mets and they're home versus the White Sox. So like, I think I'm holding because
Okay,
there's 2 juicy weeks as we start getting to the end of August for the Red Sox. So I think I'm holding here. I don't think I'm starting. These have been brutal matchups, but this is very much on him too. Like his zone percentage
right.
has jumped through the roof. He's allowing a lot of in-zone contact. I think he's just kind of lost the feel for some pitches, and he's finding the zone on pitches he shouldn't be. So I I have a lot, like I said, I have a lot of faith in the Red Sox pitching coach and Andrew Bailey.
Right.
So and I'm also like, we're getting to a point, I think, in our lives as we get older that we're seeing all our former fantasy players become managers of some sort.
Absolutely.
As Grady Sykes signed it.
By the way, I love that for him. I love
I
that.
did
The
too.
bar's on the floor. You don't have to do
Yeah.
anything much to keep that job. And I really do think the White Sox are building pretty nicely.
Did you see the whole story about like him, like he wanted a job with Arizona last year, but they didn't have anything available, so he took a $15 an hour internship.
I did not see that. I love Grady Sizemore, man.
So he did a $15 in season, and now he is the manager of the White Sox.
That's
and a lot
amazing,
of people were
dude.
making the joke that that's a lateral move.
Right. That's hilarious. No, but again, the bar is in the Earth's core in terms of like what he has to do to impress. So I think he can, show some competency for 2 months, keep the job. And again, they have some talent that's going to start churning through. They really are. For as bad as the things are for the White Sox, and they're bad, y'all, the farm system is impressive, and they've made some good trades during these dump offs. And they're going to trade Crochet in the offseason probably. They might trade Robert. Like, I know it's bleak right now, but I don't think it's bleak for eternity. I really think they could start to take a step forward as early as late next year into 26. So good for Grady Sizemore there. I don't want them to be too good. Obviously, they're in my division. So chill out over there, Grady. I'm used to rooting for him in my division, though, because he and Curtis were, battling for the top center fielder in the AL there for a while. And I could never root against Sizemore. As much as I love Curtis, they were just 2 of my favorite players. Anyway, that was our conversation about Cutter Crawford there that went astray. Texas at Baltimore. I think you talked me into holding just because he's done so much good work this year.
Mhm.
I'll give him a little bit of a pass for the 4 crummy starts and probably sitting, but I will hold and try to get to the reprieve of the couple weeks from now when Toronto, White Sox, Tigers start to be in focus for them, or for the Red
Yeah,
Sox. Okay, cool. Moving on here. I lost my sheet. Who is next? It would be
Andrew
oh,
Abbott.
it would be Andrew Abbott, but I forgot to list Kyle Hendricks. So I'm glad that I noticed that. So I will bring up Kyle Hendricks at Cleveland and home to Toronto. Do you ever start him? Are you ever interested in Kyle Hendricks?
If we get like two good matchups, uh, um,
Can I say something before you say that
yeah,
this might not be two good matchups? Cleveland now for a while
yeah,
has been pretty mediocre on offense, and we know Toronto doesn't scare. So this isn't two bad matchups. There's two pretty decent matchups here for Kyle Hendricks.
yeah. The hard part, though, with a guy like Kyle Hendricks
Is he
is
sucks
he's just not very good at pitching anymore. Um,
for fantasy. I still think he's
yeah,
like a capable major leaguer. I mean, I guess his ERA is 6, but like
yeah,
he can eat up some real life innings. But I don't know if he can eat up any of our fantasy innings.
yeah. It just the upside is so low on Hendricks because he doesn't strike guys out
Right.
that it makes him really hard to use. And I mean, I don't think you're afraid of either of these offenses right now at this point, especially against right-handed pitching. Like both these offenses are kind of mid. Toronto's.
Cleveland over the last 30 days, 29th in
Oh
WOBA
wow,
against righties.
there you go. So they're 19th in OPS versus righties this season. So like I don't mind it if, but
I just wish I had more confidence in Hendricks.
don't know.
What's that? Say that last part again. I'm sorry.
I said Chicago's not very good, so I don't know that you're going to
That's
get wins either. So, like,
also a fair
what are you,
point.
if you're not getting strikeouts, you're not getting wins, you're really relying on those ratios, which haven't been good this year. So,
Right.
yeah, but I don't think I'm starting him in any format.
Yeah, I don't think so either with Kyle Hendricks. He's had some flashes this year of old Hendricks, but they've been promptly undercut by terrible outings. Like his downside is just really sharp these days, where you're talking like a 6, 7 earned run outing, and that'll erase 2, 3 good starts easily. So I'm passing on Hendricks. Let's go to Andrew Abbott. You mentioned him. Weirdly beat up by Miami. That's frustrating. They have been hitting a few guys lately where I'm like, Miami, really? Okay, whatever. But Andrew Abbott, I promise. I know it sounds crazy because you're going to look at the results and be like, he gave up 6 earned. What are you talking about? He didn't pitch that badly. I really didn't think he did, but they did hit 3 homers off of him, so obviously he made some mistakes. But he had been pitching fine this year. We still don't see the Ks that kind of put him on the radar last year. Remember when Andrew Abbott was striking everybody out in the minors and then brought a lot of it to the majors? He had 10 Ks per 9 last year in the majors. It's down to 7.4, but the results are still solid. 370 ERA, 131 whip. Certainly has some deep league appeal. St. Louis and KC both at home for Abbott, though. Where do you stand on Andrew Abbott these days?
I mean, I just am not a believer. I don't think he has very good stuff. He's in a really bad ballpark. He's got a home run problem. He got really, really lucky at I think, beginning of the season, and now we're starting to see all the regression coming.
Right.
So I'm not interested in starting Andrew Abbott. I think he's one of those guys where you kind of, tip your cap to him and go, thanks for what you did for me at the beginning of the season, but now I'm moving on somewhere else.
I'm not against that. The whip is killer. You mentioned the
Yeah,
home ballpark with the home run issue. It sucks that because you spot start a guy like this. It sucks that you lost one against Miami. That's
yeah.
supposed to be a spot where you feel confident. But yeah, at Pittsburgh next week, sure, I'll take that shot. But this 2-step, I'm not in on it. And as much as I'm not like terrified of St. Louis, they're competent. And then KC, I am scared of, especially in Cincy's ballpark, where they just keep the ball in play all day. It could be a problem.
Yeah.
This guy is saving fantasy teams. I cannot wait to hear the stories of, oh my God, I lost Spencer Strider. And I don't know who else got hurt early, another pitcher. But anyway, my pitching was decimated. And so I turned to Ben freaking Lively and he saved my season because he has 10 wins with a 3.59 ERA. He gets the Cubs at home and a trip to Milwaukee. I'm always scared of Milwaukee. They can get you anytime, but I don't mind the Cubs at home. And Lively's been great this year. Are you in on Ben Lively?
He has not been great recently. Over his last 7
Okay.
starts, he's got a 4.62 ERA, 31 strikeouts in 39 innings. I like he's got a massive homer problem. Over this 7 start stretch, he's given up over 2 home runs per 9. Uh, and like it's not even like BABIP influence, though. I mean, obviously home runs don't count BABIP, so it's helping
Right.
bring it down. But he's got a 2.22 BABIP. Like he's actually getting lucky with a 4.62 ERA. He's got a 5.66 FIP
Wolf.
right now over the course of these 7 starts. I think the magic has kind of faded off of Ben Lively, and you should be doing the same thing with Lively that you're doing with Abbott, which is tipping your cap to him and kind of moving on to someone else.
I don't disagree on, maybe seeing something unravel here so you don't have to start him. I think there's still some 15s where I get there. I'm deathly afraid of Milwaukee, though. I have been all year, and it has served me well, even when they're down, right? Because I do the last 30-day WOBA and the season WOBA, and sometimes they'll be like, 27th the last 30 days, but then still 7th on the year. And I'm always looking at that year, and I'm like, yeah, Milwaukee can still get you even when they're struggling. So that pushes me away here with Lively. He gets Texas next week too, and they scare me, even though they haven't been great all year. Okay, I wanted to give a little pushback and say no, I kind of want to hang on, but I'm fence sitting. I'm not as aggressively moving on as you, but I'm not starting this week if I can avoid it. So I generally agree with you, but I'm a little bit more milquetoast just because I like Ben Lively and what he's done. But I'm a sucker for guys like this, and sometimes it burns me. I pick up Wade Miley every damn year too. Do you want to know the single worst setup of the week?
Sure.
Okay, I got it for you. It's Kai Bush. He's already a
Who?
White Sox. Exactly. So it's a guy you never heard of. Kai Bush, already a White Sox. So already starting at the very, 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 very bottom. That's bad enough, right? Like you need some spicy matchups to want to do that. Nope. How about the Yankees coming to visit and then a trip to Houston? What would I have to do to get you to start this?
I wouldn't start this on your teams, much less my
Right.
teams.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't
no.
I like you. I would never do that to you.
Yeah. Like not only like did he struggle in his first major league start, he was struggling in AAA before this. In 4 appearances in AAA, he had 19 innings of a 6.16 ERA. He's got in AAA he had a walk problem and a homer problem. He was good in AA this year, and
Okay.
so I'm assuming that's why and he's already 24, so I'm assuming that's why the White Sox are like, hey, we think you're
Just come
ready.
on up. Yeah.
Help us get a better draft pick. Though,
No, they're capped with
yeah,
the
I
new
know.
tanking rules, dude.
I was literally gonna say this. I was
They're
like,
so screwed by that.
yeah,
Which
like hey,
I get it. I'm okay with it because, it's like an anti-tanking situation, but
I hate
boy,
that. I just like
they're getting hosed by it.
because it doesn't prevent anybody from tanking. Like teams still tank. Like they're still
I just don't
terrible teams.
I mean, there's still going to be bad teams no matter what. I don't think you can alleviate bad teams. It's the tenure of them that they're trying to alleviate,
Yeah.
which I get because, again,
But
as I
doesn't
was
this
saying,
in many ways like actually make bad teams worse because
I
you
see what you're
can't
saying
get the
because they
top
don't
tier
get the
drop?
first pick.
Yeah.
I hear that, except like, come
It
on.
worked out because this wasn't a particularly strong draft, but still kind of oh wait, no, it's next year that they
It's next
go.
year's draft, so the max that they can get is 10. The White Sox can only pick 10th. So this is 2 awful years in a row, and I mean, dang. So you can't pick first 2 years in a row or something, or in the top 10. I don't. It's only been 2 years. I can understand if they had like 4 years in a row of this, but why are they already being stifled? That is kind of a raw deal.
Yeah,
I think I
that
agree with you.
is. Yeah, it's
Anyway, do
well,
not
and
start Kai
wait.
Bush
So
unless you're
like,
tanking.
if 10 teams can't pick in the top 10, so that means
I
like
have no idea
a
how
team
it would
that
work.
just missed the playoff potentially
Yes,
could have the top
Tigers picking
overall.
number one
Yeah,
with with an 80 and 82 record.
like that is not well thought out.
I don't know all the ins and outs of it, so I'm not going to speak to it one way or the other. All I
But
know is that
it's Major League Baseball, so you know it's not well thought out.
precisely, and all I know is on MLB Network, I'd heard that the White Sox can't pick better than 10th
Yeah,
next year,
no,
which
yeah,
sucks for them.
I had known that because yeah, but that's brutal.
Little White Sox tidbit here, since we're talking about them. We're not interested in Kai Bush in any way, shape, or form. Can I give you a little heads up for the following week? Jonathan Cannon is at least lining up. He faces New York this week.
Yeah,
We don't want that shit at all. At San Francisco, home to Detroit the following week.
yeah.
Jonathan
I mean,
Cannon.
Cannon's actually been pretty darn good. He was
That's what
one
I'm
of my
saying.
streaming picks this last week.
So take a look at him because he'll be cheap this week. Nobody's picking him up for the New York start. So
Yeah,
he'll be, if you want to spec a week ahead. Now, of course, something could disrupt the schedule and mess that up, but
yeah.
you got to take the shots that you take. I think Jonathan Cannon's pretty interesting in a 15
You'll at least
teamer.
get one of those, right?
Exactly.
At worst,
Exactly.
you're getting a good one start. So yeah, no, I like
So
that.
yeah, keep tabs on that with Jonathan Cannon, but no Kai Bush this week. Your boy, I want to see if he's graduating because we haven't talked about him in a two-step in a while. So I put Brady Singer on here. He's got good numbers. You know, he's been very nice. Are we graduating him from the two-step consideration where we just automatically go with him? He's got a 3.03 ERA, 120 WHIP on the season with 121 Ks and 131 innings. He goes to Minnesota and Cincinnati. So he's got the at-min, at-sin. Is Brady Singer trustworthy enough to where we don't even talk about him on two steps anymore?
Yeah, I think he's got to be at this point, right? Like, I mean, the results are there that you have to say, like, hey, he's finally kind of figured it out. He finally got a third pitch up over 10% of the time in terms of usage, getting that fastball up a little bit more. Like, he's not given up a ton of home runs this year, and he doesn't walk guys. So
He looks a lot like 2022 Brady Singer, which I say as a positive.
He's only given up a home run in a game once since June 21st.
Wait, what?
Yeah, he's got a 2-homer game on the 14th, but no other homers given up since June 16th.
Compared to the other guys we're talking about with all their home run issues, this is a breath of fresh air here for Brady Singer. You keep the ball in the park. I mean, you're going to string some wins together. And as you've seen, I mean, he's got 4 wins in his last 6 appearances as well. That's another thing, too, obviously, is that KC's good. So not only, in 2022, when we were getting some pretty good Brady Singer, there was no win support. He grinded out 10 wins in the full season. He's already got 8 this year in the same amount of starts as he had in 2022. So I like Brady Singer. I think I do think that we are graduating, meaning 15s and 12s. You're just setting it and forgetting it with Brady Singer.
I think so at this point, yeah.
All right. Davis Daniel.
Our boy.
Also, the White Sox, they had a guy, Davis Martin, and they were pitching on the same day. And dude, it was like messing with my brain because I thought it was the same guy. I thought it was Davis Daniel. And I'm like, wait, when did he go to the White Sox? I thought he was an Angel. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, and I have both games on my little 4-box, and I'm just losing my mind that they're both named Davis. Anyway, obviously 2 different players. Davis Daniel, and we call him our boy because we kind of chuckled at people that went and picked him up after he cooked Detroit because he had a 2-step coming up. He obviously was destroyed in that. Returned to the majors, did well against Colorado, cooked at the Yankees, obviously. But he gets a 2-step next week. It's Toronto, Atlanta, which coming into the year, you wouldn't start many guys in that. At this juncture, neither of those offenses is particularly scary. Any universe where you're getting to Davis Daniel both at home, Toronto and Atlanta?
No, I don't think so. The more interesting thing is that the Angels and the White Sox play each other in 2 series coming up in September. And could we get a Davis Daniel versus Davis Martin matchup?
I hope so. I will watch the shit out of that.
We would have to do. We haven't done. We haven't done any live or not live stream, but watch parties yet this year. But if Davis Daniel and Davis Martin have watch or have a matchup against each other, we're watching that.
And
Just
we have to Mystery Science Theater 3000 that one because that's like the
yes,
worst matchup in the universe. So we
yeah,
will clown the
absolutely.
shit out of that one. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're not starting Davis Daniel. I I never really fell for it even after he cooked the Tigers like that. It's like whatever.
No.
This name doesn't usually show up on a list like this. He's a pretty good pitcher, but I have to see where you're at with Clayton Kershaw right now because
Never heard of him.
we're not we're not getting Clayton Kershaw that we're used to. Insert joke about playoffs or whatever. But he's got 4.38 ERA, 162 WHIP through 12 innings. Right, we're not going to go too crazy over 3 starts. But are you trusting him? It's at Milwaukee, at St. Louis. How do you feel? It's the decent first start, awful second start, decent third start. Problem is, Justin, Kershaw hasn't reached 5 yet. 4, 3 2/3, 4 2/3. Do we start Kershaw anywhere next week?
And so, like, I didn't start him this week against Philadelphia. I felt like he was,
I don't blame you.
Philadelphia, and I just didn't think I would get a win.
Right.
And so, like, while he actually looked really good, he looked very Kershaw-esque. They still pulled him before 5 innings. So I'm still a little worried that is, like the Dodgers aren't necessarily looking at making the playoffs; they're looking at winning in the playoffs, and they want a guy
Correct.
in Kershaw to be healthy and be there for that.
And I know
So
we
that,
can make all the jokes, but like
yeah.
the Dodgers desperately still want Kershaw on their playoff roster, regardless
What,
of any of the results.
especially with the state of what their rotation has been this year.
Exactly.
Like,
Yes.
how many years do we have, where the Dodgers like have had like question marks all throughout the rotation? Like
Right.
this is a new experience for them, and so while Kershaw isn't the guy that he was a few years ago, like he's still a guy they want pitching in October for them. So they're going to do everything they can to make sure that he's healthy and there for it, and that includes like he's still kind of ramping back up to a full workload. I don't necessarily have a problem starting him here. I know these are tougher matchups, but it's still Kershaw. So I think in 10s and 12s, you may want to reconsider, especially if you're win seeking, because you're going up against two, good teams, away from Dodger Stadium,
Mm-hmm.
and a workload management issue where he's probably not going to go 5 in both, if maybe not even either of these games. So, but if you're just looking for ratio help, like I still think he's Clayton Kershaw. Like I know he's not, the prime Kershaw, but
He's
old
good
Kershaw
enough.
is better than 90% of pitchers in Major League Baseball. So like,
Bingo. And yeah,
I'm not.
that's where I come out. I can't sit him. You waited for Kershaw, or you paid for him on the with the big fab. You start him. You start him in a 2-step. You hope to get 1 win here. At least he had 4 2/3 last time out, so maybe they are building him up, and he gets to 5 innings this time. Like Justin said, he was Kershaw last time out. 4 2/3, 5 hits, run, no walks, 5 Ks. We're trusting him here. You paid the big bucks. Get him in there at Milwaukee, at St. Louis. A little tough, but it's Clayton Kershaw. Ben Lively of the National League is called Colin Ray. That's how it translates. It's a different language over there in the National League, but Ben Lively equals Colin Ray. It's the same type of vibe, though, right? A pitcher, kind of a journeyman type guy on one of the better teams this year. Surprise, better team, right? There's a lot of parallels here. Nobody really expected Cleveland to be God tier, and here they are with 67 wins. I don't think anybody expected the Brewers to not necessarily run away with the Central, but they've been in first more or less the whole year. And they still have a 6-game lead with 65 wins. And Colin Ray's been a big part of that. We've made all the jokes about Freddie Peralta and his band of goofs, which is the rest of the rotation. But Colin Ray has 10 wins, 3.38 ERA, and a 1.18 whip. He has been legitimately good.
Yeah,
But he gets the Dodgers and Cleveland both at home. Are you getting there with Colin Ray in 15s at least for this 2-step?
I hate to say it, but like so much depends on if Mookie Betts comes back in that Dodgers lineup.
It's
Like,
fair.
I'm a lot more afraid of that Dodgers lineup once Betts is back. I mean, now that Freeman's back, like it's looking more like the Avengers. It's just the Avengers
Right.
without Hulk. So right, like um, I don't know how you don't start Colin Ray. Like he has been so good, especially since the break. Like he's been just absolutely fantastic. So like I don't know that you are sitting him in any format. Like he's I have been waiting all season for like the wheels to fall off on Colin Ray, and I'm not going to be surprised if and when they do. But he's actually put together like his best 4 game stretch of the season here
Yeah, he's cooking
since
of late.
the All Star break. Like it's well, I guess the start before the All Star break is included, but like over his last 23 innings, he's got 30 strikeouts and a 157 ERA. He's only given up 2 home runs. They both came in 1 game to Atlanta. Now, it is partially like the schedule. He's gone up against Washington, the Cubs, and then Atlanta twice. And Atlanta hasn't been the offense that they've been before. But like you also like he continues to just be successful. So I think you're rolling with him pretty much anywhere. I guess tens you can kind of make a determination. I prefer him in leagues where like it's a daily lineups leagues where you don't have to start him against the Dodgers. But if I had to like just do a weekly kind of, I have to take both, I'm probably going to do it.
I think so too. He's just been so good, Colin Ray has, that I think I'm finding the spot to keep starting him. Yeah, tens, I agree. Like it's up in the air because 10 team rotations are generally deeper, but Colin Ray's actually on the table even in a 10, which I never thought I would have said at any point coming into the season. So he's been good. Another name that might be a little surprising to be on here, but when I give you some of his numbers, you'll understand. And it's Pablo Lopez. And I think we've actually had him on here before with like a temperature check because he's been up and down all year. And, you know, I've been mostly keeping him as a 3X guy, meaning I recommend him across all formats in the SP chart. But there's been trepidation at times. And Justin, we're looking up at a 4.74 ERA. Still has a 116 whip, the exact number he had last year. So that's good. But the home runs have become a big problem this year. It's up to 1.5. He's always been a bit of a homer guy, but this year for Pablo Lopez, they've really jumped up. Are we getting away from him anywhere, or do we just still stick with him, even KC at home, Texas on the road? What do you think of Pablo Lopez?
I mean, I think he's fine. Like I do. Like even if you kind of like truncate down the sample to like a 6 start sample, which includes like a bludgeoning at the beginning of July. Like he's gone at least 5 innings in every start, every one of these 6 starts. Yes, it is a 4.37 ERA, but it's a 3.47 xFIP. His home run rate is fine. It's pretty much right at 1 over this stretch. Like he doesn't walk guys, he attacks his own, he gets strikeouts. Like I get why. Like I think this is just one of those kind of fluky, weird seasons for Pablo Lopez. I don't think he's pitching poorly necessarily, or the skills have denigrated at all. I just think he's been kind of unlucky, kind of off and on throughout the season, and I'm still a believer. So like, yeah, is he a must start? I don't think he's a must start because of the results, but like, I care more about skills. I think the skills are all intact. I think Pablo Lopez is fine.
Yep, I can't find a way to sit him. Again, he's had these struggles. I've consistently, dug deep and said, okay, am I sticking with Pablo Lopez here? And then push come to shove, I always end up getting there because I'm like, I can't sit this guy. I know the homers are a problem, but that's really the only fly in the ointment right now. And it's a real fly. It's a problem. But how do you bench him, especially for a 2-step? Because just when you do that comes 14 innings with 2 earned, 22 Ks and 2 wins or some shit. And I'm just not going to let that happen on my bench. And I know it could go the other way. I'm willing to take the risk. Similar to our Jonathan Cannon gambit that we just recommended, we did talk about Paul Blackburn being worth picking up for the following week. He had a cooler step. We talked about this during the trade deadline review. Don't worry about the cooler start this week, but get him for Oakland, Miami, both at home the following week. I love this setup for Paul Blackburn. I think it's viable in every format. Again, 10s probably don't have to, or don't necessarily have to, but it's at least on the table. I love Blackburn here. What do you think of him? Oakland, Miami, both at home for Paul Blackburn.
Yeah, I mean, like the matchups are just too good. Like they're just too good.
So it's almost the most perfect matchup you could get. The only thing better would maybe be like the White Sox in for Oakland instead, because Oakland can hit homers. But that's revenge game for him, so he'll be fine.
Yeah, I think his matchups are way too good, and Blackburn has been fine since he returned from the IL. He missed a really long period of time, but he's gone
Right.
back to, he just threw 6 in Colorado. Like, I think, you're not going to get a lot of strikeouts from him, though. I mean, both of his last 2 starts, he's had a
He's had
strikeout per inning.
some
Yeah.
better
So,
swing and miss. Yeah.
uh, but yeah, I don't know how you get away from these 2 starts when you get Oakland and Miami. They're both at home. And City Field is a pretty darn good place to pitch. So I'm starting Blackbird pretty much everywhere.
It's unfortunate that he couldn't cop a win for that great Coors outing either.
Yeah,
The offense didn't support him. Actually, no, it was that Diaz blew it.
yeah.
He left with a lead. I'm sorry, my bad. Offense. They didn't score that many for him, but they ended up coming back and getting the win at least. But Victor Vodnik got cooked in that game. Anyway, yeah, I like what Blackburn's doing. He's been interesting at points this year, even before he got to New York. Now he's on a decent team, and he gets these great matchups. Some good matchups here, but not as trustworthy of a guy. My boy Taiwan Walker. Is this his first start back, or has he been back? This will be his first start back, so this
Yeah.
isn't even guaranteed here. So stay tuned. But he's penciled in right now to get Miami and Washington both at home. I think if you're wins chasing and this is confirmed, I can maybe get there. The problem is, and I'm sure you're going to bring it up, is he going to be able to get 5 innings both times? But what do you think of Taiwan Walker? He had a rough rehab, but he is penciled in to return here. Do you think you find him from Miami and Washington, Taiwan Walker?
I mean, his last rehab start, he went 5 innings, only gave up 1 earned run, in those 5 innings. I think his name value, which is weird to say because like I don't think his value is particularly high to begin with, but I think his name value carries a lot of water on Walker. Like people
Fair.
just kind of remember who Taiwan Walker is and say, "Oh,
Right.
that's a name I know." Uh,
Right. Especially when
I
you're searching in August looking for any pitcher and
Yeah.
you see name I recognize. Yes.
That being said, like he is going up against Miami and Washington, who are 2 of the worst teams, at least worst offenses against right-handed pitching. Well, against Washington's middle of the pack, but Miami's 27th against right-handed pitching in OPS this year. So I guess in a 15 I'd consider it. I don't think in 10 or 12. I don't love starting guys coming off the IL when we don't have a lot of information about what their
Right.
workload is going to look like and how they actually look. Because when he was pitching in Double A, it's not like you really got a lot of you got video or anything from that. You have to kind of rely on scouting reports. So uh, I'm I'm trying to avoid it even in a 15, but in a 15 I could see myself doing it if I had not very good options.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too with Taiwan Walker. Maybe a 15, but that's about it. Marco Gonzalez for the Pirates. I always confuse him and Martin Perez. Martin Perez is no longer with them. They sent him out to the Padres.
Mhm.
But two finesse crusty lefties on their team, and I mixed them up all year. I know Perez had been doing some decent things. Yeah, Gonzalez not so much. 4.54 ERA, 160 WHIP on the season because he's been super super hittable. Marco Gonzalez gets a trip to San Diego and home against Seattle. Now I know we've been streaming pretty much anybody against Seattle because of how much they strike out. That's not Marco Gonzalez's game though.
Yeah.
I don't think I get here. What about you, Marco Gonzalez?
Uh Yeah, I don't think I get here either. I don't think he's a very good fantasy pitcher.
No.
He's more of a real life innings eater, and
Right.
like he hasn't even been very good since returning. Like he hasn't gone 5 innings in his last 3 starts. So you're probably not even going to be in line for a potential win.
Right.
Uh, he doesn't get strikeouts. So what's the upside here? Like you're probably just going to get your ratios beat up. Like this is NL
Exactly.
only.
Yes. NL only desperation there for Marco Gonzalez at San Diego, home to Seattle. Joe Musgrove is slated to return on Monday, so we're talking about him coming off injury. You just mentioned that you're not the biggest fan of it, but it is Joe Musgrove, ostensibly a fantasy ace. He gets Pittsburgh. He's facing Marco Gonzalez. Yay. But then he has to go to Coors. Is that enough to scare you, or is it Joe Musgrove back in right away? Where do you stand with this as he looks to return on Monday from the elbow?
I'm shocked he is returning. Like he's missed a really long period of time, and his first rehab start, he only went 3 1/3. in low or in high A. Like I don't want to start this. Like he's definitely a pick up and stash type of guy, and I
Right.
have him stashed in a couple leagues. I'm going to continue to stash him because I love Joe Musgrove, but I also am just petrified his arm is going to fall off. Like, and I've been petrified. Like I didn't draft him anywhere. Like
Same.
I picked him up off of the wire as like a stash play just to see, and I was able to hold on to him in a couple of leagues. But yeah, there's no league where I'm starting him, especially going two cores. Like uh, I,
That's the
I
killer for me with
I
Musgrove
just don't
is
know that he's going to go deep enough into the game to qualify for win. So these are good matchups, but like they're not like great matchups because you can't guarantee he's going to go five. So
right.
I want to see something before I'm starting Musgrove, pretty much in every format.
That's where I'm at too. If he had come back for a start this week, even if it wasn't good, just back on a major league mound, I'd have a bit more confidence. But I don't know. You mentioned he's been out for a while since late May for Joe Musgrove. I'm also passing. I'm holding, of course, or picking up if he's available and stashing, but we're not starting yet. Check back with me next week against the Mets. I'll start him. I'll pretty much start him regardless of how this week goes, unless he gets rehurt, I guess. But I just got to see something back at the big league
Yeah.
level. All right, next up we have Tyler Mahle. Speaking of returning, now he's back. He's made a start, and he wasn't too bad in his season debut. 5 innings, 1 run against Houston. We love that. Only 2 strikeouts, but 1 walk. I mean, just a nice outing against a really difficult ball club there, going up against Fromber. Tyler Mahle now goes to Boston and hosts Minnesota. I know you're a longtime Mahle fan. Are you ready to throw him back in the fire here with two pretty good starts? Two pretty good teams he's facing, I should say.
Not yet, especially with the matchups and the lack of strikeouts. I just don't know where he's at physically quite yet. And what we've seen with some of the guys that have already returned from Tommy John is they might look good in one start and then can't find the zone in the second start.
Probably
Um,
right.
yeah, exactly. And I just worry that that's the case. And both Minnesota and the Red Sox can really beat you up if you can't command things within the zone. So
Absolutely.
I'm a lot more concerned. You know, Minnesota is the sixth best team versus right-handed pitching this year in terms of OPS. Boston's second. So like you're playing two top six teams
Right.
against righties, and you're a guy that we don't know if we can trust your command. Like I think that he should be rostered in all 15s in some 12s, but you shouldn't probably be starting him unless you're absolutely desperate in 15.
Right. I'm holding Tyler Mahle because I am intrigued by what he could do down the stretch. You don't have to start him here unless you're
He's a
desperate.
2025 guy for me. Like I'll be
Right.
all in on Tyler Mahle next year. Like, but I don't trust these CJ attorneys.
Couldn't agree more. Bowden Francis goes to the Angels and to the Cubs for Toronto. He had some juice coming into the season from spring training. People were excited about what maybe he could do. He's been in and out of the rotation. It's been up and down results. You seen anything here now that he's back in the rotation with Bowden Francis?
Uh, Not really. I mean, he did have a good start here versus Baltimore.
Right.
But I mean that was preceded by a weird, relief appearance. They came in for a third of an inning. Um,
But then a decent-ish start against Baltimore
yeah,
before that, too.
and these are good matchups at LA, at Chicago.
I think
I
there's
think
some
a
15
15,
team heat.
I could get there in a 15 teamer. I just don't know what you're going to get start to start with a guy like Button. He
Right.
isn't very stretched out. Like he's got a lot of bullpen work this season. Now he was going,
He kind of maxes at like high 70s, low 80s pitches. So you can
yeah.
get 5 if Bowden Francis is doing his thing. I think it's on the table in 15s at the Angels, at the Cubs. You know, you can do something with that. I wish obviously Toronto was better, but if they were, Bowden Francis probably wouldn't be starting for them. So,
He, he's gonna
it's a
go in kind
risk.
of like, are you feeling lucky
Right.
tier that I
When you
do,
do
which is
your
like
tier
right below
breakdowns.
no start.
Yeah, I
So
think that's totally fair. Like you're going in eyes wide open, knowing that it could blow up in
yeah.
your face, but you're trying to catch some lightning in a bottle. All right, and then this guy probably graduated, but it's really difficult matchup. So I had to ask about my boy Swerving Jake Irvin because he's been good this year. 376 ERA, 112 WHIP. We like that. 119 Ks and 139 innings. Ks aren't his biggest thing. So we've been mostly starting him pretty consistently for a while, but he goes to Baltimore and to Philly. And so I was just figured I would put him on the list just to see where you're at. Are you confident enough in Jake Irvin to take that two-step, or do we tap the brakes here and maybe sit him in some spots?
He's actually been really bad over his last 6 starts. He has a 6.82 ERA. He's giving up almost 3 home runs per 9 in that stretch.
I don't think that's very good. That strikes me as
No.
bad.
Now, he has had to play Milwaukee twice, and then he had a matchup against St. Louis.
Okay.
And the Mets have been, hitting homers. But he just gave up 3 home runs to my Giants, which is
Can't
not
be doing
great. Yeah. So I'm a little bit more skeptical, especially with these matchups. I think most people are going to look at the overall stat line and probably just roll with it. But
Right.
I don't think I would start this in a 10 or a 12. I think it's a 15 team only. And you're kind of hoping and praying, especially because the matchups are kind of so bad that like you're probably not getting wins here. So what are you really
Exactly.
asking for from a guy like Jake Irvin, who doesn't strike a lot of guys out and is really struggling with his control right now? So I mean, he's given up multi-home run games in 4 of his last 6. So that scares the crap out of me. I'm
That's terrifying.
probably staying away from this.
I think I am too, everywhere I can. And again, we understand the difficulties of 15s that you might have to start a Jake Irvin just because like you simply don't have better options and he's done enough good work this year. But Justin highlighting how much Irvin struggled of late, plus the matchups, plus the lack of Ks and the poor team context to help him with potentially winning some games. I'm with you. This one's scary. I'm trying not to start Jake Irvin anywhere if I can avoid it. All right, that's the 2-start slate for next week. Hopefully that gives you some ideas about who you might want to start, and hopefully gets you going on your article, because I know you do your 2-step article and you get this first run of them and you see that there's some landmines out there next week. Be careful, folks. What do you got coming up this weekend? Are you and Jason getting together?
I'm hoping to. I think we should be able to get together on Sunday. So other than that, just kind of getting ready for the school year. My kids go back to school
around the corner
here on Wednesday, and I'm excited.
You're desperately excited, aren't you?
No one is more excited than me to have my kids not be here. You and
my sister, she can't wait. I think we were talking about that the other day, where it's like there's nothing to do. Go back to school.
Yeah, it's we've definitely gotten to that point of the summer where like my kids are just bored. They're just done. Like it hasn't been like super hot here where like they can just go swimming. Like they're just kind of it's hot enough where they don't want to be outside, but they don't want to be in the pool, and like they're just bugging me. And I love my kids.
Right. No, this is not like I hate my kids and my family situation.
Yeah.
It's the summer.
But I also work from home, the majority of the week, and the summer is a time in which I do not get enough work done because people are just around all the time. So looking forward to actually being able to get work done.
Well, to you and the other parents that are getting freed here soon, best of luck. We'll be back on Monday talking some things. I don't know what our topic's going to be yet. I do have new SP rankings coming out, so that'll probably be our midweek episode unless the foundation starts cracking or the roof explodes or some other bullshit happens.
Home ownership is
right.
Awesome.
Listen, it's great. This place is amazing. Jen rules for getting this place, but it sucks when you can't just call the front office and say, "Come fix this."
There's a guy on TikTok, and I think he lives in Texas. But he's a professional comedian. But he also he's got a whole series he does on TikTok, which is called "Fuck This House," and it's him trying to fix things around his house. He doesn't have to pay someone to do it for him, and it is so funny because he knows enough to
to be dangerous.
To actually do stuff, but not enough to actually do it correctly. And it is very funny because he's a comedian.
So you need to send me that. That would be
I'll I'll send that to you because it's yeah, it's pretty funny. And like, and his comedy's fine, but like his him trying to fix his stuff around his house is like, it's so relatable for me because like, you know, as a person who owns a home, like, you know, like something breaks, I'm like, oh no, can I afford to fix that? Like, can I get away with not fixing that?
Right.
Like I have no idea, but I'm gonna find out, I guess.
I feel that, man. I do not have great handyman skills. I do the best I can, but yeah, we had to call it the plumber. So hopefully that goes well. We will be back next week. Justin, have a good one.
Take it easy.